morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told out of Voice of Radio, so today it's time to talk about Twilight Masquerade. And we need to mention the fact that pre-releases have started. Pre-releases are off and rolling, but the set is not out properly until next Friday. Which means we are in the worst possible time for buying singles, and I need to give you my usual warning, which is stop buying singles for Twilight Masquerade. Now, I'm not saying don't buy singles. I'm not saying don't buy Twilight Masquerade. I'm saying don't buy singles now. If you want to go pre-releases, you absolutely should. Pre-releases are awesome. Plus, you might get the pre-release Tatsugiri, which is rad. And I'm not saying don't buy boxes on release. I'm not saying don't pick up singles when the prices go down. I am saying that right now, as I record this video, we are in a terrible, terrible time for actually picking up singles because the pre-releases have happened. So some cards are out there. But the real release hasn't happened, which means the supply of cards that are out there is much lower than it's going to be in a couple of weeks. And that means that people are just massively, massively overpaying for these cards. And as always, I'm going to show you some examples. And I'm going to show you these people are paying way too much for these cards. And hopefully that is going to help. Like the last set was Temporal Forces, okay? And my favourite card from there was Raging Bolt, the alternate art Raging Bolt. And people were paying $80 for that on release. It was selling pretty widely at $80. It was quite happily an $80 card. Obviously, if we head on over to TCG Player right now, we look at Raging Bolt. Is it an $80 card? No, it's not even close. It is about a $50 card. And honestly, this is an example of a card that's held its value way better than most. This has actually done really well. And it's dropped by almost half. And that's a good thing in terms of holding value. Like, this card has done better than most at holding its value, and yet it's ridiculously expensive. Want another example? How about Iron Crown? There was an actual sale of Iron Crown. I think it might have been the first one sold on eBay. Actually sold, genuine sale, for $140. You can see where I'm going with this, right? Anyone want to guess how much Iron Crown, the special illustration rare, is going for right now? It's not $140. It's about $70. And again, this is a card that has held its value decently. We've not seen a massive cratering here that we might see from a bunch of other cards. Now, I'm not saying that this is, super expensive or anything like that. It has still dropped significantly, but I am telling you that this is holding its value better than a lot of cards, and this has dropped by more than half. And these are ones that have held their value quite nicely. How about one that hasn't? How about Bianca's Devotion? Now, Bianca's Devotion on release, there's two sales here, one for $75 and one for $60. Bianca's Devotion is cool. It's a nice enough card. It's got lovely artwork. It's a sub $30 card. Now, this is one that has been tanking quite nicely. And you can see there it was listed at $60 on TCG Player. Has fallen down to under $30. And again, I showed you those listings a minute ago. Bianca's Devotion is crashing quite nicely and will continue to. And these were some of the big cards around about the release of this set. These were cards that were particularly sought after. And they are all dropping significantly very, very quickly. I know we're going up to a new set. We're only 2 months out from the release of Temporal Forces. The gap between these two sets is quite small because we actually saw Temporal Forces being a March set, whereas it would traditionally have been a February set. So what about the new cards? What about the cards from Twilight Masquerade? Surely people aren't just selling these for way more than they should. Yeah, of course they are. Of course they are. Let's take Carmine. Carmine might be the biggest card in the set. And right now, if I go and have a look over on eBay, go and have a look at some of the ones that have actually sold, because that's always a good look at what people are paying. The early sales for this card were, well, you got free here, $110, $110, $130. $110 people were paying on release for this. Now, there's been some recent sales which are down nearer the $100 mark, but this is a card that is being massively overinflated, because that's what happens to cards on release. In fact, I mean, to be fair, the two most recent sales are best offer accepted on 105 and 95, so let's not pretend there's been some huge drop already. This is comfortably around a $100 card. And I'm going to use the example I often use when I talk about this. We're going to talk about INO. INO that came around in Paldea Evolved. There is a cheaper version of INO that came around in Paldea and Face. Now, the INO from Paldea Evolved, if we look at the graph for the past year, you can see that it held its value decently for a while and is going down. This is a $70 card. And there's a few things you need to remember about INO here, right? Firstly, this is like a staple. This gets played a ridiculous amount. Now, I'm not saying Carmine isn't a decent card. It absolutely is. Carmine is your discard your hand, draw 5, but you can use it turn 1 going first, which makes it pretty decent. Carmine is a decent card, and I'm not saying it's not. What I am saying is, it's nowhere near as good as INO, and honestly, I don't think that's even a remotely controversial statement. INO is a way better card than Carmine. Also, more popular character. And I really like the Teal Mask. I enjoyed playing it. I had a great time with it. But does anyone honestly think Carmine is a more popular character in Pokemon generally than INO? No, obviously not. So why would this be a $100 card when INO's dropped to 70? And the answer is, of course, it wouldn't be. I mean, this reminds me very much of Miriam. Miriam on release was a massively hyped card. And the reason was, incidentally, because it was a very expensive card over in Japan. But special illustration rare supporters in Japan are not the same as special illustration rare supporters over here. They tend to keep their value decently over in Japan, whereas they really don't keep their value very much over here at all. I mean, take Penny as an example, one of my favourite cards in the Scarlet and Violet era. Special illustration rare in Japan is 5,500 yen, which is still $35. It's not horrendously expensive, and when I go to Japan in August, if I see one for that price, you better believe I'm picking it up. But anyone checked in on the price of Penny recently? The English version of Penny over on TCG Player? Yeah. Penny's a legit $5 card. Like, genuine $5 card. Cards in Japan keep their value a lot more. So, when Miriam came out, massive hype for Miriam, right? Everybody thought Miriam was going to be this big card, super expensive, all of that. And it's just dropped precipitously since release and is now sitting at a $30 card. And honestly, like $30 for a Scarlet and Violet era special illustration rare supporter is quite a lot, honestly. This is one of the more expensive ones. But again, and I cannot stress this enough, they don't hold their value in English. So then we end up in a situation where Miriam went and dropped quite nicely to $30. Penny ended up as a $5 card. INO is a gigantic exception, a huge exception, as a $70 card. And I'm expected to believe that Carmine is a $100 card? No, mate. No, not even close. Not even close. If Carmine ends up as a $50 card, I'm going to be absolutely stunned. It is a decently popular semi-playable card. And when I say semi-playable, I mean it is going to be in decks. You are going to see it, but it's not going to be a staple everywhere. Decent card will be in decks, won't be a staple. That was popular over in Japan. That's it. There's no way it's going to be a $100 card. Remember when Dendra came out in Japanese and everyone was super hyped about that card being the biggest card in the set, and I really wanted it because it's Ghidorah artwork, but it's too expensive. $10 card now. And honestly, a $10 card it's exaggerating. It's nearer like $9.50. Because these cards, generally in English, do not hold their value. Unless it is something exceptional. Like Ino, which again, that's basically a staple in like every deck. They just don't hold their value. $100 for this is ridiculous, but that's not it. We could keep going and look at a couple of other examples quickly. How about Perrin, for example? Perrin, very similar kind of deal, incidentally, in terms of popular character-ish, decent card, but not hugely ridiculously popular character, and not a stunning staple in every deck kind of thing. Last two sales were 94 and best offer accepted on 90. There were some early sales that were near at the $100 mark, but I'm going to be nice and just show you the more recent ones. This is not a $90 card. And I don't need to go through again why we just did that, where I showed you a bunch of supporters and I showed you why supporters should never really be above $30 to $50, and they're really exceptional if they get to 70, so we're paying 90. And look, if you're buying these because you want to get them graded early, then fine. If you're buying these for some other reason, fine. If you're buying these just because you want them and you can afford it, that's fine. I'm not telling you don't buy these cards, although I know I literally said that. What I mean is, don't buy these cards unless you're happy paying over the odds. And some people are going to be happy paying over the odds. And that's absolutely fine. But just know that you're paying over the odds. How about Pokemon in the set? Surely people aren't massively overpaying for Pokemon in the set. Well, how about Blood Moon Ursaluna? And I mentioned Blood Moon Ursaluna, right? Because firstly, it's cool. And secondly, it is seeing a significant amount of play. It does decent damage, but its attack cost is reduced by 1 for each prize card your opponent's taken. And it's a basic Pokemon that uses colorless energy. So it basically slips into like any deck as a 1-card tech, which is pretty important. So this is one that I could end up seeing being pretty good. This is one that I could see people being pretty happy about. And again, it's selling for like $100. The last 3 sales are 85 and 2 best offer accepteds on 100. And I've shown you how these cards tend to plummet in value after release. But you know, I showed you Iron Crown, which has gone down massively. Raging Bolt, which has gone down massively. And both of those have proven to be good playable cards. Now, keep an eye on Raging Bolt. It's making a comeback. I'm hearing whispers, ladies and gentlemen. I'm hearing whispers. But the point is, these Pokemon have fallen down in price massively since release as well. So why would we not expect this to? You know, Chen Pao. Let's take Chen Pao as an example. That is a top deck right now. Like, legit top deck. One of the best decks in the format. And the illustration rare, the special illustration rare, is very, very popular. It's like a $25 card. $25. I'm not saying Blood Moon Ursaluna is going to be a $10 card. But the idea that it's a $100 card or an $85 card is absolutely absurd. Because I've shown you that prices go down on release. And I've shown you that comparable Pokemon and comparable supporters to the ones I'm talking about here end up getting significantly cheaper. If you're buying singles now, it's because you've got a really specific reason, like getting them graded early, or you know you're paying over the odds and you don't care. And if that's the case, good luck to you. I hope you get the cards you're looking for. Otherwise, give it a few minutes, let the market settle down, because in a couple of weeks, I'm going to come along with a video showing you how the prices are crashing for the set. And I know I'm going to make that video in a couple of weeks, because the prices always crash. Okay, that's what we need to know. Now it's over to you guys. Tell me what you think about this. Tell me what your chase cards for the set are. Tell me which cards you've picked up. Tell me anything you want to tell me in the comment section. Good us. Be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWasi. That's where we talk about Pokemon and a whole bunch of other card games. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCGradio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts, join a Discord, and all kinds of fun things. And get shoutouts on the channel like the lovely UberMX, who's been a supporter of ours for a while now and is a very lovely person. So shout out to them for the support and the loveliness. But by far the most important thing is always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.